Get started, I want to honor your time. My name is Tiffany Dominguez. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Innovation here at Centralia School District, and I'm very proud to introduce you to Mrs. Jessica Jaime. She is the teacher on special assignment at Raymond Temple Elementary School. She is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to supporting our English learners, our multilingual learners here in the district. And so she is excited to be able to share information with you on our English assessment, the ELPAC, as well as what you can do to support your children at home. So what I'm going to do is share my screen so that you can see her presentation, and I'm going to let her take it away.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for being here. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. So I want to give you guys some information about our English language proficiency assessment for California that we take once a year, and it is called, you'll hear me refer to it as ELPAC. So this is a test that we're going to take coming up soon at all of our schools. So initially, everybody takes an initial ELPAC assessment when we start at any school, if there's another language that is spoken at home. And then once we have the initial results, we also take a summative ELPAC for all of our English learners, and we take that every year. So there's a few reasons why reclassification is very important for our students. So for English learners, reclassification is important because when a student has developed enough English to succeed in school, it tells us that they have enough language support. It's important for a few reasons, but our biggest thing is we want to make sure that they have enough language to be successful in the classroom across all academic areas. So we're going to look at a couple reasons of why it is very important for students to be reclassified. So, like I said, for academic success, we want to make sure that students have enough English that they can read, they can write, they can speak, and they can listen at a level similar to their peers. So we want to make sure that they are prepared and ready for more challenging classwork and assessments that they can do and perform in English. So as long as they have enough of that English, we know that they are on track and ready to be reclassified. Also, another important reason of them being reclassified is for educational equity. We want to prevent students from being kept in EL programs longer than necessary. So if a student is showing us that they need language support, we want to help them and we want to be able to provide any supports that we can to ensure that they're getting English support at school, but we also want to make sure that when they show us that they have that language and they are academically successful in English, that we want to make sure that we take some of those supports away. Now, that may sound a little scary, but we're not taking supports away from your child. We still are going to monitor students. Even when students are reclassified, we continue to monitor their progress year after year to make sure that they're not sliding backwards and needing some more of that language support. And if that is something that they need, we're always going to be monitoring and checking in with our students to make sure that we provide that support for them if that's something that they need. We also want to make sure that they have access to opportunities. So once they are reclassified, a lot of other courses open up for them. So especially in like junior high, if they are not reclassified in junior high, they will have to take an English class. And if they are not reclassified in high school, there are some other classes that they will not be able to take because they will be taking English classes. So another thing that comes with them being reclassified is that it increases their confidence in participating in class discussions and group work. And that is something that We want to give them the opportunity to be involved in class, and having that English to support their academics is really a confidence booster for our English learners. And anytime if you have any questions or anything, please feel free to put it in the chat. And then at the end, we'll have time if anybody has any questions at that time too. But if you don't want to forget your question, please feel free to put it in the chat. So our reclassification criteria. Now, this is our criteria for Centralia School District. So there are a few different things that our English learners need to do to really show us that they have that language, that they are going to be academically successful using English. So first is our summative ELPAC, which is the test that is coming up, which is the test that I'm talking to you guys about. Our students will take that. They will need to score a 4 to show us that they are successful on the ELPAC. So once they score a 4, then we move to the next box, and then that has to show us the demonstration of basic skills. So we either take a look at their iReady ELA scores, from their diagnostic that they take at school. And then also our CASP ELA scores, which is our yearly test, our state test that we take. So on iReady ELA, they have to score early or grade level or above to show us that they're academically successful in the classroom. And also on the state test, the CASP, they have to show us that they are at meets or exceeds at grade level standards. Once they show us in one of those areas that they are successful, they are on grade level or they meet or exceed, then we go to a teacher evaluation. So at that point, then we go to the teacher and we ask the teacher, this student has passed ELPAC, has passed iReady, how are they doing in the classroom? And usually if they're passing these tests, they're showing us that they have all those language skills, and then their grades are showing that too. They're doing their work, they're on track, and they are meeting needs in the classroom as well. So the teacher evaluates them and says, yes, they're on target to being successful. And then we go to the parents. And we go to the parents and we show them all the information and we say your student is able to be reclassified, and then we get permission from parents that you are on board with them being reclassified. And once we get your signature, then we can reclassify our students. So our ELPAC testing is actually going to be starting. This week is the start of ELPAC testing for our summative ELPAC. Initial ELPAC testing can take place anytime a student is new to our district, so that can happen throughout the school year. But for our students that are currently enrolled in school, they have already taken the initial, and so now we're taking the summative ELPAC. So we usually take it anytime between February 1st and May 31st, and usually your schools will let you know when exactly your students are going to be tested. It may be a little different depending on the site that you're at. Now, these are the subjects that are tested for ELPAC. We have listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Now, all 4 of these will be tested by all K through 6 students will be tested for ELPAC on all of these areas. So our testing format. So there is a few ways of doing this. Our little ones, most of their tests, actually, if not all, for like kinder and first grade, we do a lot of individual, that it's administered individually. The speaking portion of our test is administered individually. So that means like I give the test, so I will sit with one student at a time and we will do the speaking portion together. I'll give you some examples of what that looks like at the end, but that one is done one-on-one with a teacher or a bilingual aide. The other domains depend on the grade level. Sometimes if the grade level is small enough, we'll put them in a group together and be able to have them do like the writing together. But if it's a big group, we try and separate it to make it more of a small group if we can. And some of the other portions can be done individually as well. So this is for our initial ELPAC. This is the scores that you have already been given when your student first enrolled in school. And on here, if they were a level 3, that meant that they were fluent in English. So they would not be currently taking the ELPAC any longer. So anyone who was a 1 or a 2 would currently be taking the ELPAC. These are our summative ELPAC scores. So these are scores that you have received in the past if your student has taken the ELPAC tests in prior years. And if not, this school year, when they take the test, these are what the scores will look like when you get them. And on the next one I'll show you will be an example. But if they score a 4, that is telling us that your student is well developed in English, and that is exactly what we're hoping for, that students get to a level 4. We also want students to be developing their language year by year. So students who come in at level 1, we understand that they're developing that language. So it's okay if they're not going from a 1 to a 4 in the very next school year. That is very hard. And I tell my students all the time, you drop me in another country having to learn a new language, that is so hard. So I may not have the best results after the very first year that I've started to learn the new language. So all we want for our students to do is continuously be developing that language. So every year we should see some movement upwards, right? So they started at a 1, we want them to move towards a 2, up towards a 3, gaining that language and getting that support every day at school, and to hopefully get to a level 4 where they're well developed. Next slide is going to be a sample of what you will receive for your children's test results. So there will be a notification sent to you by email so that you can log into Aries to see your students' results. This is just a sample of what it would look like. On the left-hand side, it shows you their overall score, and it gives you a number score with it as well. And it kind of goes in and explains the score. And then if you look to the right, it kind of breaks down the score for you. It even shows you each year how the student scored and if they're making progress in certain areas. And then it goes over their oral language score, which is listening and speaking. And then it goes over the written language score, which is the reading and the writing. And so between those two scores, they take the overall, and that's what you'll see on the left. That one says, as the sample says, the overall level is a 3. So this is what your student scores will look like. And again, you'll be notified by email of when your scores are in, and you can go log into Aries and be able to find them there. So now this is something that's very important, and I know that that's why a lot of you parents are here, of how can we help our students be successful, right? How can we help at home? So these are some little ideas, tips, tricks of things you can do at home to be helping your student. Now, they are getting a lot of language support at school, and even just being at school for our English learners is really, really great. They're being exposed to all that language at school, in class, on the playground, which is great for them. But these are some ideas of things that you can do to help support that at home as well. So for the listening, reading stories aloud in English. Now, I completely understand that we may not have all of our families that speak English at home, but if our students are reading in English, it's okay that they read to you in English. You may not understand all of what they're reading, but they're getting that language practice of reading in English. They could read to siblings, they could read to grandparents, just that action of them reading in English aloud. Listening to audiobooks or short educational videos. This is something that we practice in class as well. They listen to a short presentation, maybe PBS Kids, some educational videos. They listen to a short video and then have to tell us what happened in it, right? So those listening skills are very, very important. Even just giving them simple directions. First, you're going to do this when we get home. Next, you're going to do this. Last, you're going to, even following simple directions can be very hard for students, and it doesn't matter the age, right? Both my children, I constantly am repeating myself. So making sure that we're giving simple directions to kids and seeing how they can follow those directions. Are they actually listening to us, right? And so those are really good ways for them to practice their listening at home. For speaking, talking about your child's school day. That's a big one. A lot of the times kids come home and they want to tell you everything that happened that day, right? And it's usually about who got in trouble, who did what at school, who lost something. It's all the stuff that's not the important stuff. But we do love the fact that they're speaking and they're telling you about their day, but maybe asking more specific questions and open-ended questions like, well, why do you think that happened? Tell me more. What do you think is going to happen next? Right? So even when my kids come home from school, I ask them specific questions of like, well, what did you learn in math today? Can you give me an example of something you learned in math? Because if you just ask them, how was your day? Especially the big kids, they're going to give you fine, it was okay. And they're not really going to elaborate, right? And so we want them to be able to tell us how their day was and give us details of what happened. Why did it happen? And some kids love to come home and tell you everything. And then there's other kids where you kind of got to pull it out of them, right? But asking those detailed questions will really help them speak a little more. Encouraging your child to speak in full sentences. That's a big one. We are constantly telling our students, making sure that you're speaking in complete sentences and full sentences, because that's ultimately going to help when you start to write. So for our students that are writing, it is much easier when you're thinking in full sentences, you're speaking in full sentences, and it's going to be a lot easier for them to translate that to writing full sentences. So I understand, and we should all understand, to give our English learners some grace. They are going to make mistakes, and that is totally okay. We are totally fine with that. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mingus, can we go back? There you go. So they're going to make mistakes, and they're building that confidence, right? And we want that for them very, very much. We want them to build their confidence and be more comfortable with speaking in English. Reading. So again, I'm sure this is not the first time you heard it. We love for our students to be reading at home, 10 to 20 minutes every day, looking at the pictures, talking about the story. I even tell my own children, like, okay, today may not be a good day, like they're tired, they're grumpy, but let's just go read a book that you've read 100 times, and let's just reread that favorite book. They may know every single thing that's going to happen in the book, but it's the act of reading, the act of talking about what's happening in the story. Sometimes they just want to look at the pictures and talk about what's happening in the pictures. That is great practice for them as well. So any kind of reading. And there's some days where my son's like, Mom, I'm done. I can't read another thing. I have used my brain too much today. And I said, okay, what about I read a story to you? And he's like, yes, they love it when we read to them, right? So even reading to them and then asking questions, still making them work a little bit, right? They still got to do a little something. So reading to them, but then asking questions. Reading in your home language is also very, very helpful. So maybe mom or dad or grandma or grandpa at home does not read in English. reading to your child in your home language is also very helpful for them. Using both sides of their brain is very, very hard. And so for students to be reading in Spanish or in any language other than English is also helpful, but having them practice that reading in English, even if it's just reading to you, is very helpful for them, for their language skills. Writing simple sentences or short stories. Sometimes just getting a piece of paper out and say like, okay, tell me what happened at school today. Write like 3 sentences to describe something that happened at school today. Or drawing a picture, and especially for our little ones, drawing a picture and labeling things on it. They may not be able to write full sentences yet, but even just labeling things in the picture to help create those sentences, right? We're starting to build those sentences. Making lists. My daughter loves making lists. I don't know where she would get that from, but teacher over here, making lists, making chores, lists of activities they want to do. We do a summer bucket list and they have to write down everything they want to do. All of that is helping their writing skills, helping them take from what's in their thoughts down to paper. So any of these things that we can do at home to help support their language skills at home is very, very helpful for our students. All right, so there is an online practice test. There's training tests online that are provided. Our students do see these. The teachers go through these. They use these as practice tests and sample questions for students to look at to kind of see how the test is going to ask certain things for students. So teachers go through some of this. Either they look at this together as teachers and decide how they're going to use this in the classroom, but parents can access this from home as well so that you can go on and see what it looks like. So these are some of our sample questions. So this is our listening portion. A lot of the times we will have something for the students to listen to. So like the one with the bear, you're going to listen to a story. Now, a lot of the times that's why the listening part is so important, because we have a script that we read to the students. And a lot of the time the listening portion, you can only play it one time. So we tell our students, okay, are you ready? Are you sure you're focused? You're ready to go? Because you're going to listen to this one time. And after that, then you're going to answer questions about the story. So as the grades get older, so like from kinder to 6th grade, the 6th grade stories are going to be a little lengthier. So they're going to have to listen to more details than the kindergarten stories, right? So, and once we get up 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, they're going to be asked multiple questions about the one story, whereas like kindergarten may only be asked one question about their short story. So we play the story for them and then we ask the questions and they have to pick the answer that goes with that question. The speaking portion. So on this portion, we tell the students to, on this exact question, we give them the picture, we show them the picture, and then we're directed to ask them certain questions. Like one of the questions would be, what do you see on the walls? Tell me anything that you see on the walls. And then they are to speak. So we press the little microphone and we record their answers and they tell us everything they can in English about things that they see on the wall. They could say, I see a whiteboard on the wall. I see some posters. I see a calendar. I see a window. Those are all things that could be answers of things that they see on the wall. We can ask them, what is the teacher doing? And then they'll point to the teacher and they say, the teacher is moving the chair. So those are things that we'll ask them questions about a scene of what they see, and they have to explain to us in English what is happening. Another part of the speaking one, I was actually working on something like this with my students today. Students will be asked for their opinion. So they'll usually be given 2 options of things. So this one, on number 1, it says your class is learning about volcanoes. Your class will be making volcano models. Would it be better to work on the project as part of a group or by yourself? So then the students have to pick, which one do you think would be better, working in a group or working by yourself? And then the most important part I tell them is they have to tell me why. Why do you think working in a group would be better? Or why do you think working by yourself would be better? So the main things are you have to pick one or the other. Then you have to tell me why do you think that that's the best choice? And then we have talked about it before, talking in complete sentences, right? So making sure that they're answering in a complete sentence when they choose which one in a group or by yourself. We can go to the next one. So those are our speaking questions. Then we have our reading. This looks a lot like things that they work on in class, where they're going to have to read a paragraph or a text, and then they have to answer questions. So this is something that they see throughout the day in class in language arts and science and social studies. This is something that they're used to seeing. They're going to have to read a passage and answer questions. Then we have the writing part. So students are going to, there's going to be a couple different ways that they're going to be asked to write. And again, depending on their age, their grade level. So students in these examples, look at the picture, write about what is happening in the picture. So they're just going to look at the picture and then they're going to answer as best they can what they see happening in the picture. The other picture over there is there are 4 seasons throughout the year, and then the students are going to add sentences of other things they see in the picture. And students are expected to write as best they can to answer the question. There is no, like the one that says, look at the picture, write about what is happening in the picture. It doesn't say you have to write 10 sentences. It doesn't give you much detail or explanation on like what exactly you have to do. It just, so I tell my students, all they're asking you is what is happening in the picture. So just tell me exactly what you see happening in that picture. So that's why even looking at stories and just looking at the picture and them describing things that are happening in there, that's exactly what they're going to end up having to do for the writing portion. So it's really good practice for them. Another form of writing is, so like in the box, write a new sentence. So adding on, so adding detail to a story that's already written. And then another one, the practice prompt that I have there, think about a time you helped a friend in school. Who did you help? Why did you help? What did you do? Describe your experience. So in those kinds of prompts, it's very important that we tell them, okay, how many things did they ask you in the prompt? We have to be sure that we're answering every question that they're asking us in the prompt. So when we look at this prompt, we say, who did you help? Why did you help them? What did you do? And describe what you did, right? And so they have to make sure that they answered every single question in the prompt. And as long as they answered all the questions, their scores are going to be higher because they answered everything that was asked of them. All right, so here we have a parent guide to understanding. This can be found online for you guys. Basically goes over everything that I just went over with you today about ELPAC, about who takes it, what it is, why we take it, when we take it, how you get your results. So all that information is provided there for you on the California Department of Education website. If you would like to go and look for that, it's on there along with the practice test as well. And some more, I think on my next one, it's some more videos and things for parents as well to look at. So yeah, so you can go on the California Department of Education and there's all kinds of parent resources and videos there for you if you want to learn more about the ELPAC test. And that's it. That's it from me. But unless you guys have any questions.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Jaime. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity at this time for those of you who maybe have questions. Feel free to put them into the chat or to raise your hands. We can unmute you and we can address anything that maybe you need further clarification on or anything you want to discuss. So we'll wait a minute for as people put their questions or comments in the chat. Feel free to raise your hand. This is really a great opportunity to, hopefully we've given you some information to,
Sorry, I had a question. I couldn't raise
yes,
my hand.
that's okay.
I had a question about the writing section. Specifically for third graders, but well, I mean other grades also. Um, how is the writing like evaluated based on like how many words they write correctly, like dictation in general, and like how do like for the seasons one, how do they have to describe the seasons? I know that the number of sentences is not a matter, but in general, like how many sentences qualifies them as a number 3 or a number 4, or how many dictation errors?
Is it okay? Can I go, Tiffany? Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's not really about how things are spelled or grammar, anything like that. Yes, we want them to work on those things for sure. And it helps when their writing is being evaluated that they can read their writing, but it is more answering the prompt. So again, if they asked them to write 2 more sentences about the story, if they were on topic and they wrote the 2 sentences, that already is moving them in the right direction. But if they did not write about the story, so like the one prompt that was about the seasons, if they wrote a sentence, I went to Disneyland, that is not going to count towards correct sentences, right? Yes, they wrote a sentence, but it had nothing to do with the seasons that they were talking about. So on that one, they just wanted them to add 2 more sentences about the 4 seasons. So it could have been anything. It could have said, in the springtime, there are more flowers, or like whatever the pictures had, that the flowers were blooming. It could have said, in the summer there was a big sun. It could have said, in the summer it is sunny, right? So they're adding sentences and details to go with the question that was asked. So we go over a lot of making sure we're answering the prompt. What exactly did they ask you, and how many things did they ask you to answer? And so if they ask you who, when, why, and you answer all 3 of them, you're moving towards like the 3 or the 4 in that area, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a 3 or a 4. So we want to make sure that they're answering the prompt, but yes, we would love for spelling to be great and fantastic, but it doesn't necessarily always count on, is every word spelled correctly, or is every I capitalized, is every period there. They're not super hard on the mechanics of it. Does that help a little bit?
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Okay, good.
Do we have any other questions or anything else you'd like to talk to Mrs. Jaime about? She's a wealth of knowledge. Well, we hope that this information was valuable for you, and that it gives you some resources that you can go to for further information, or also just clarifies the kinds of things that you can do to support your children at home. And we will stay online for another minute or so for anybody else who may have questions. But otherwise, that concludes our meeting today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.